Hey guys, it's Angie Atkinson, and today at queenbeing.com, we're going to discuss the differences and similarities between narcissistic personality disorder and bipolar disorder, and why psychologists and other medical professionals often confuse the two. Let's get started. All right, so I've been writing about and talking about narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, and narcissistic abuse recovery for years. And one of the questions that I hear over and over again is, you know, actually related to another issue, which is bipolar disorder. Okay, so let's talk about that. The question is, what are the differences between bipolar disorder and NPD? And generally, this is usually asked because, as one client told me, her ex narcissist has been diagnosed by a psychiatrist as bipolar. And she doesn't really think this is the case. She's done some research, and no one, of course, will listen to her, least of all the narcissist. So, while I haven't personally experienced this issue, I can definitely relate to her pain. How about you? I mean, what if you knew something to be true and the whole world believed it otherwise, and you couldn't explain it any better than that? So, let's see what we can do about that, right? Okay, so narcissists often are misread by many therapists, and generally in one of two ways. Either the therapist sees nothing wrong with the narcissist and blames the victim for all the problems in the relationship, or the narcissist is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Okay, so why does this happen? There are a few different reasons, and I'm going to talk about that right now. First of all, a lot of therapists, surprisingly, are not educated on NPD at all. And some of them don't even recognize that it's a real disorder. I mean, one of my clients told me the other day that she mentioned gaslighting to her therapist, who quickly said, well, he'd never heard of that. And then he asked her how to spell it. Yeah, I was like, what? Are you kidding? No, not kidding. Another reason that this happens, quite honestly, is that so many of the symptoms overlap between these two disorders. Okay, so I'm going to put it in clinical terms for you, and I'm going to share with you just a little bit of information from a 2008 study that was published by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Okay, and the study was entitled Commonalities and Differences in Characteristics of Persons at Risk for Narcissism and Mania. And it was written by Daniel Fulford, Sherry Johnson, and Charles Carver. Okay, so here's a couple paragraphs out of that. Well, really just a couple sentences for you. Okay, so first of all, they say that clinicians have long noted overlap in some of the key features of narcissism and bipolar disorder, including excessively high goals and impulsivity. In addition, empirical findings consistently, document high levels of comorbidity between the two conditions. Okay, so to better understand the similarities and differences in psychological qualities associated with mania and narcissism related vulnerabilities, the test the testers, the researchers, administered 233 undergraduates, a broad range of measures pertaining to goals and affects as to both their experiences and their dysregulation and impulsivity. Okay, so as hypothesized, they said that tendencies toward both narcissism and hypomania, this is what they found out, related to elevations on measures of affective and goal dysregulation. In addition, hypomania tendencies were related to higher impulsivity, but that association did not appear for narcissistic tendencies. Okay, results, they say, highlight key commonalities and differences between those at risk for mania versus narcissism. And they said that in future research, they would examine these relationships, in clinically diagnosed examples. So let's put that in layman's terms, shall we? Some people who have both, sometimes with people who have NPD and people who have bipolar disorder, both of those will present with grandiose perceptions of themselves. Sometimes narcissists almost always, and a person with bipolar disorder pretty much only when they're in that hypomania time phase of their disease, or manic, depending. And both will have unrealistic fantasies of power and success. Plus, both may also feel a heightened sense of their own abilities or accomplishments. Okay, so, but like I said, this is most commonly misdiagnosed when a therapist believes that the person is experiencing mild hypomania, which is the elevated mood of someone with bipolar disorder that hasn't quite reached that full manic level yet. Okay, but based on these symptoms alone, even a well trained professional psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist might misdiagnose a patient. Okay. And so, as you know, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a certified life coach. And so I figured, once again, I'm going to try to bring you some additional information from a psychologist who is qualified to offer this type of advice. So let me just do that really quick. According to psychiatrist Michael Peterson, and I got this from something he's written online, who is also an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health's School of Psychiatry. One major distinguishing feature is really just the timing of the symptoms. Okay, so Peterson says that personality disorders are pervasive patterns, I almost said Pattersons, patterns of relating to others and situations that are long-standing, right? So in bipolar, manic, or depressed periods, those will typically last weeks to months, but they're not always present. You feel me? So, like I said, these symptoms can definitely overlap, and Peterson says that other factors could also play a part in the confusion, right? So, he says a lot of the core symptoms of bipolar can be confused with normal variability in mood. Okay, changes associated with personality disorders, including NPD and borderline personality disorder, or changes associated with alcohol or drug use. Interesting, right? We know a lot of narcissists happen to be drug and alcohol dependent as well. All right, anyway, let's talk about bipolar symptoms versus narcissistic personality disorder symptoms. All right, first we're going to start with the basics. Bipolar is mostly characterized by dramatic and overwhelming shifts in mood or energy. They kind of do the roller coaster deal, right? And of course, these will alternate often in a pattern. These types of highs and lows, and they may hit the highest highs, the lowest lows on a regular pattern. And during the manic period, they're going to have a lot of energy and be much more extroverted, while when the downside hits, they'll find themselves exhausted, withdrawn, and generally in despair. Okay. Another big marker for bipolar disorder is that those who are most seriously affected, sometimes they really can't function in a normal day-to-day life. They can't keep a job, they can't keep a relationship because their disorder is so, it takes over their whole self, their whole life. And so that's another kind of big marker between the two, is that you've got your bipolar people who are a lot of times on disability, or should be, or they're working in jobs that are kind of beneath them because of the fact that they are kind of up and down with their disease and their different phases of that disease. Of course, when it comes to NPD, you're going to be dealing with someone who's very self-absorbed, I mean, to an unhealthy, toxic level. And here's the big ding ding, it is that, someone with NPD does not experience actual empathy for the people around them. Okay. A bipolar person might be incredibly empathic. A bipolar person is not by nature necessarily a selfish person. Sometimes their disease may make them appear that way, but in reality, they still may have the ability to have empathy, at least when they're not in a depressive phase. Okay, whereas the narcissist cannot. Okay. So, in order to correctly diagnose or differentiate between the two disorders, psychologists have to pay attention to the patterns in the lives of the people with the disorder, and they should be aware of the specific phases. Whether they, if they believe the patient is bipolar, especially, they should watch those phases. So here are a few more things to consider in this whole confusion, right? Sometimes, and this is the part that's really ridiculous, but it's true and you have to know it, sometimes it is possible for someone to be both bipolar and narcissistic. Okay, the two disorders can coexist. In fact, a recent study found that cluster B, which includes borderline narcissistic, antisocial, and histrionic personality disorders, you know, the cluster B features were evident in about a third of bipolar patients. Okay, and this includes possible associations to childhood emotional and or physical abuse. You feel me? So Just to clarify, I'm going to go over the NPD symptoms with you once again, and this list is available for you, of course, at the diagnostic. This is according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM-5 that we all talk about, which was published by the American Psychiatric Association, and is also available for you at queenbeing.com if you need a copy of it. All right. So anyway, number one, having an exaggerating sense of self-importance, narcissist. A narcissist expects to be recognized as superior without, even without the achievements that warrant it. All right. Another one, a narcissist will be exaggerating his or her achievements or talents. Okay. A narcissist is preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. Oh, yeah, that one's big too. A narcissist believes they are superior and can only be understood by or associate with equally special people. Oh, yeah. A narcissist requires constant attention. A narcissist has a sense of entitlement that's usually way beyond what it should be. A narcissist expects special favors, unquestioned, and wants you to comply without question with his or her expectations. And if you don't, trust me, you'll be punished. A narcissist takes advantage of others to get what they want almost consistently. A narcissist has an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. A narcissist will be envious of others and believe that others envy them. A narcissist will behave in a really arrogant manner. I'm so much better than you, like that, right? Okay, and so those are the basic symptoms of being a toxic narcissist. But now let's talk about the basic symptoms of bipolar disorder. Okay, again, this is from the DSM-5, and please note this is a very high level overview because I don't have all day, and neither do you. Because bipolar, quite honestly, is very complex and far more complex than I think any of us even realize. Okay. So, the first thing you need to know is that you cannot self diagnose bipolar disorder. It's not possible. The DSM 5 does require a medical diagnosis in order for it to be accurate. Okay. Mania symptoms, according to the DSM 5, include periods of elevated mood or irritability. And when a bipolar person is experiencing a manic episode, they will have high levels of energy with a reduced need for sleep. And less often, they may also experience psychosis. Depression symptoms include feeling sad, low energy, low motivation, loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities. Okay, this is very high level. Again, let's not forget. So when we're talking about a bipolar person's mood swings, they're going to have a lot of sadness, elevated mood, anger, anxiety, apathy, apprehension, euphoria, general discontent, guilt, hopelessness, inability to feel pleasure, or loss of interest. Okay, sounds like a lot, right? But let's get to their behavioral differences. Okay, they will feel irritable. You will see them engage in risky behavior, disorganized behavior, aggression, agitation, crying, excess desire for sex, hyperactivity, impulsivity, or self harm. All right, the cognitive parts. You're going to get unwanted thoughts. They're going to see delusion, lack of concentration, racing thoughts, slowness in activity, or false belief of superiority. And as you can see, some of these are kind of overlapping with our narcissistic traits. And so this is why it's so confusing for people. All right. Psychological issues with a bipolar person: depression, manic episodes, agitated depression, paranoia. Sleep. Here's a big difference for y'all. The difference between a narcissist and someone with bipolar disorder, narcissists almost always sleep really well. At least in my experience. Not always, but in my experience and in what I hear from other survivors, often the narcissist sleeps like a baby because they have no conscience. All right, moving along. But people with with bipolar disorder will, in fact, have trouble with sleep. Whether they sleep too much or too little, they'll struggle with it. People with bipolar disorder will feel tired or restless. Okay, people will gain or lose weight when they have bipolar disorder. Also common, rapid and frenzied speaking, and this, of course, is usually generally during a manic phase. Okay, now here's my final thought on this. While people with bipolar disorder might have episodes of remission, right, in which bipolar disorder doesn't dictate their lives, people with NPD are pretty damn consistent about their behavior. Okay, sure, there might be varying levels of intensity with the gaslighting and manipulation and manipulative behaviors that you experience as a result of being involved with a narcissist. And the narcissist will kind of do that little roller coaster ride with you, but in a much more calculated way. And it's a character type, narcissism doesn't go away. NPD doesn't go away. And even when there is some success in treatment, while, acknowledging that the disorder is rarely treated or diagnosed, unless it's, only a very small percentage of narcissists have been diagnosed, and that's because of the fact that generally they don't think anything's wrong, and they usually are in there for another issue, or they're arrested and they're diagnosed by their prison psychiatrist. No joke. Okay. But even when there is treatment involved, and even if there is some success in treatment, it is surface level and it doesn't usually last long term. Okay. That fact, along with the fact that the narcissistic person really can't experience any real empathy, are, in my opinion, the two most obvious differences between those two disorders. All right. Okay. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Do you know anyone who seems to be a narcissist, and what would you say to my suggestion, that the easiest way to detect the difference lies in both the patterns and the empathy factor? Share your thoughts with me. Leave them down in the comments section below, and let's see what we can find out, okay? Also, before I wrap up today, a little news for you. Next Tuesday, I will be featuring the lovely and amazing Kim Saeed from LetMeReach.com right here on my channel. I'm very excited. I think she's amazing and very, very talented and smart and really cool. I can't wait to introduce you guys to her. And if you already know her, let me know. She's amazing. And then we've also got, we're rescheduling for next week with Kristen Darcy. We had a little technical difficulty this week, but we're going to hopefully have that straightened out for everyone by next week. And all kinds of really good stuff coming for you soon. So stay tuned. Please subscribe right down there if you haven't already. Or is it over there? I don't know. Anyway, subscribe, please. I look forward to talking with you soon. Have a great week, everybody. See you later.